Many of you may have seen the breaking news last year about Alzheimer's research potentially being, at least in part, fabricated. This was in relation to the amyloid beta plaque hypothesis for Alzheimer's. Now, those who have been following me regularly may recall when I first shared this news back in fall of 2022. But let's get into some details about what exactly the controversy is and what it means for Alzheimer's research. Now, the research that's called into question focused on specifically something called amyloid beta 56. These researchers were effectively claiming they had found the specific amyloid protein responsible for the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. And this largely led to the dogma of what's called the amyloid hypothesis, that amyloid plaques are the cause of Alzheimer's. Here are a few important things to keep in mind, however. First, a lot of researchers were skeptical from the beginning of this hypothesis, and so research has continued in other avenues more generally. Second, amyloid beta 56 is not the only protein that can cause amyloid plaques. Third, although the amyloid hypothesis seems very flawed, there is still a good amount of data from lots of other research labs suggesting some relationship between plaques and Alzheimer's. Now, what that relationship is remains unclear. So what does this mean when we find this fraud in terms of the effect on Alzheimer's research? Fortunately, because of those skeptical scientists out there, a lot of the research remains unchanged. And funding sources may potentially now open up to other avenues, since before a lot of funding was tied to that earlier finding. Personally, I think the bigger issue is not on the effect on Alzheimer's research as much as on the effect of public image in terms of trusting science to do the job it's supposed to do. Doing this kind of research work, in my view, is sacred. And when somebody violates that contract, it opens the doors for people to rightly question whether or not data is legitimate. And that kind of distrust can lead to real-world consequences when people don't feel comfortable trusting the data. As always, appreciate the conversations. Please continue them below.